Hi, this is Manna, and I'm designing softwares in Java for many years, and currently from our learnings of writing frontends and backends for web applications, we try to create a framework for developing frontend and microservices quickly. So I want to discuss today what we have done. So we are calling it COCKPIT. So COCKPIT is basically a software framework, developing framework in Java, frontend, development, framework in Java. So this is the key point, Java, not Javascript. So our learning is that creating large front-end applications, specifically single page applications in JavaScript after a long term becomes chaotic. Maybe some people may not agree with me, but everyone knows, it has a pitfall. JavaScript becomes unmanageable when it really becomes big in terms of adding new features, build life cycle, and fixing the bugs. It's really troublesome. So we have this learning, and I think most of the people will agree with us. So as I have to deliver things that can have a good quality and persist long time and deliver satisfaction to customers, the most problematic part is basically developing the front end, because customers are engaged on front end highly. So many changes, so many mistakes also happens, and the requirements changes time to time. So we thought, why not we create front-end development framework in Java for single page applications. So, and you know, the Google is doing, Google introduced GWT, and it has its own problem. So we don't want to go that way, not GWT way. So that is again another trouble to create something like that. But we want to introduce something that you can use everything what you do to front end, but use Java instead of JavaScript. So that was the basic need. What is the reason behind JavaScript is failing to manage the large things? So when someone is designing the application, like a large application, the architect is trying to build something, it's really a bit hard to think abstract classes, interfaces, the modular communications, messaging in between the components. This becomes a bit very not easy to grip, but which is really easy in Java. Thinking an application in Java in an object-oriented way is easy. That doesn't mean that you cannot do it in JavaScript, but doing it in Java is easy. You can think it easily, which has lots of lackings in JavaScript. So it's like doing something forcefully in JavaScript, which you can easily do in Java. So designing a front end with Java is really an ease, because you can think abstract classes, you can think interfaces. So what are the features we need to do in Java to give the ability that Java can provide frontends, but not GWT type of things. So what we do, first thing, what is other frameworks giving in frontend to develop single page applications. So they are giving basically a component class basically, and this component class needs some features like receive, actions, and talk to other components. And receive actions from frontend, and this component class is also responsible to render. It also renders. It renders the view, taking all the resources. Then it can receive the actions from the front end, the button clicks and other things, and listen all the mouse listeners and interactions of users. Then another important feature is this component can talk to other components. So what we have done, we have given Cockpit Java component, which is very simple. If you create a component from Cockpit component as a Cockpit abstract class, abstract component class, it will give you these methods ready in that class, and thus you have to declare in render method the views, HTML views. Then you have to add action listeners from the front end, and then you have to add internal action listeners from other component classes. So these are basically rendering and listening, nothing else. Rendering and listening. Rendering and listening. So this is the basic component functionality in front-end components. To achieve that, it's really easy in Java. So we can do it. Now the problem is how Java will work in browsers. Java has to work in browser. So how Java will work in browser? So that part becomes easy when there are compilers, ahead of time compilers. When you are developing in Java, you can easily convert it to JavaScript. It's not that hard. You can easily compile it and convert it to JavaScript, and there are in the market now available very good called JavaScript JVMs, Java Virtual Machine for browsers. So one name is very popular now, back to browser. There are also other VMs for browser like TVM. So we are preferring back to browser. Back to browser is the basic compiler, transpiler that basically making this Java component work in browser. And that's the simple trick we have done. We have made it work. So what we can do now, we can use all the Java techniques to develop from, nothing else. So this is all components you can develop now as a Maven artifact, Maven project, or as a Gradle project, and create a wrapper API or other jars, Java jars, libraries, and you can create as wonderful as you want, as interactive, powerful components, and you can keep them as Java Maven projects. And the wonderful thing is, in browser you can plug them, unplug them. So whatever component you want, you can easily register in that your application. That component will be available with these views. If you want, you can unsubscribe them. So you can approach developing modular, and each module can talk with other modules through the listeners, and you can configure each modules talk with each other easily. So that's the basic thing we have done. So while we are doing this, now we have given some more nice features, like there is a component we call layout designer, and there is a class loader. The class loader is basically mainly responsible for loading these classes. So, and like in required.js you use in Javascript, so that will basically load the classes, and there is mainly a layout designer who can give you any sort of rendering scope. So when you deploy the layout designer in your browser, that can adapt or that can add as many components as you want, or subscribe or unsubscribe from that. That is the basic interesting feature we have added in this framework. And with that layout designer, the thing we have added, that communication in between module that can communicate with the service worker. So current development is basically progressive web app development, single page application development, and most of the browser is supporting service workers. So these components can all talk with service workers. So you can make offline management. This component can have its own data in offline in browser service workers. Cache, using the cache API. So you can easily use the cache API, and notifications, push APIs from these components. So you can easily develop as large applications frontend as you want. So we will show you the demo after this discussion. And the basic problem with Java development, when people are developing frontend, the problem is it's not easy to have a backend server with Java. So people easily, in Node.js, in one or two commands you can start a basically HTTP backend server, web server. But in Java, when you want to do this, when you want to run a Java application, you need a very, very useful backend like Tomcat, very big. You have to configure it, you have to run it, or JBoss, more bigger. So it's really not something good for, easy for the developers, front-end developers. So we introduced another thing that we call HTTP2 gateway. It's a simple one jar you can run in one command, just Java jar in your machine easily, and it will give you a HTTP2 gateway server, and you can easily define your domains, register your domains, here as many as you want as a proxy, or you can define your API endpoints easily configurable in JSON configuration. So one configuration, and then you can easily create microservices. We have provided framework in Cockpit to create microservices in any IDE. You just have to extend our abstract microservice class, and you will have a microservice ready, project ready, which is basically connected with this HTTP2 gateway. So you can easily expose your JSON web services or your JSON data or any format data to your frontend. So your frontend can easily subscribe the microservices, and this framework so easy to do and easily manageable because everything is in Java and everything is in one build. The backend, the server, the front end. You can have Maven build, you can have Gradle build. The whole project you can keep in one build, and you can easily deploy and undeploy these components from your front-end application. So this is really a new way to develop in Java, the full front-end, middleware, and the service layer, and the gateways. So I will show you the demo. So I hope you will understand. If you have any queries, you can contact me. I will give you the email addresses and our links. So that's it basically. Hope we can clarify more in future.
Your web application can have multiple pages. Here in Cockpit we do not call it a page, we call it a path. Path creation process is very simple. Go to the design mode. Select the path drop-down. You will see the already created paths. This is file. This is person. And this is article that we have already created. Okay, let's create a new path. Open Path Creation panel. Enter path name. We choose campaign as our new path. You can choose anything you wish. If your site is secured means use HTTPS, then make your path secured also. Carefully read the warnings when you marked your path as your home path. If you checked, your current home path will be changed. File is our current home, so we do not change it to campaign. That's why we do no checked it marked. Click on the Save button. New path campaign is created successfully. Okay, let's load our new path. Here we see the new path is loaded with an empty layout. Let's customize our empty layout by creating rows and columns. Initially we get a row by default in our empty layout. Row creation button will be found on the layout section. Click on the plus icon and see what happens. Another row, row 2, is created successfully. Let's customize the row style. Open the style section, change the style values and click on the Save button. You will see how effectively it works. Let's create some column inside the row and change their style. I'm just doing the same thing for the second row, creating 2 columns inside it and customize their styles. We can easily rename our layout, row, column. Just click on the current name, change it and save. Okay, I have already changed all the rows and columns. Let's drop a component inside a column. You can also develop component if you are a software developer. I will provide another video about the component creation process. But you can also drop components subscribed from the Cockpit Marketplace. I already subscribed these components. Just click on the component you want to drop. I have dropped 2 components. Let's see what happens. Okay, you already see these 2 components are dropped inside the layout. All the components are configurable. First time the component is dropped with the default configuration. I will show you how to change the component configuration. You can also change the component style similarly as we had changed style of rows and columns. I have already dropped some components into the layout. And currently it looks like that. Now I will show you how I customize the component configuration or how it works. By clicking on this button, configuration panel for this component will be open. Let's change the generic list component configuration and see how it works. You see there we have different configuration options like default view of component. Is it list or grid? You can choose any as your default. Another configuration is item type, which item will be shown on this component. Is it person, documents or organization? You can add more item as option if you are a software developer. I choose documents, that's why this generic list component shows the list of documents related to the company. But in person path I choose person as default selection. You can also control the number of items shown on the list by increasing or decreasing the number in list item count. Now I increase it to 20 from 10. All the components you dropped inside the layout can talk to each other. You see I already keep the identity of other components, so that generic list component can talk to themselves. Okay, now we save the component configuration and see what happens. Yes, changed. Default view changed from list to grid and also the number of item on the list has changed from 10 to 20. You can also switch to list by clicking on this button, but it will not saved as we have saved configuration. Each item we shown on the list can have 2 different views. One is meta view and another is expanded view or detail view. I show detail view from the file path. So all items here is file. Detail view may vary from item to item. This view is called meta view where the meta informations are shown. You can open the detail view by clicking on the expand icon. You can also open the detail view by clicking on the preview button inside the action menu. Different file item like image, PDF and etc. can have different detail view. Now I show you how PDF detail view looks like. Tag share and relate is another important feature that is also available in Cockpit. Okay, let's see where it is. Just click on the action menu icon. An overlay appears with tag share, relate and preview options. Let's see how tag feature works. Type something inside the input field. You will get a tag creation button below the input field if tag is not already exist in Cockpit. If you click on the create button, new tag will be created and added to the item. But if tag already exists, you can select it from the tag list. You can also share this item with other persons in your company. You can define permission level like owner, admin, write, read, etc. while sharing any item. Type name of that person you want to share with. Select from the list and change permission level. Okay, now check the relation feature. It is as easy as like share feature. You can relate this item with any item. Just select item type from the drop down, type item name and select relationship. Done.